Alright, so I've got a little bit of bonus footage here. I wanted to squeeze this in wherever I could, and I think this is just where it's going to have to go. We're going to work on doing the back plate for the control cavity and our truss rod cover. I saved you guys a little bit of pain in trying to work out the angle on this. So I'll move down to where we're moving here. So in order to try to figure out this odd angle that came on this, basically what I've done is taken a couple cut up pieces of cardboard. Normally you'd want to use card stock to make this just a little bit easier. This is just what I saw laying around, and I have worked this into the angle that we need, hopefully. So we're going to use this just to get that angle correct, and I'll come back through and do the same thing, most likely. We might be able to use the same one and just round it over. So we're going to use this as a guide. A protractor would probably work for this. I just know that this would be a quick solution. Alright, so we've got our sheet here. We're going to quickly measure out what we need. Make sure we're zeroed. Yeah, so StewMac had a little sale on calipers, and I am glad I got one. Got to flip this around. Ooh, I was afraid that wasn't going to make it. Alright, so we've got roughly 3.57. We'll call it 3.6. We're going to end up sanding this down a little bit anyway. So I am going to take the back of an envelope and write that down. Ooh, this is not the pen I thought it was. So just to make sure I don't forget where anything is going, I'm going to do a basic outline of it. So I know that's 3.6. Killing myself here. One and 1/8, 1.125. Knowing some fractions will help from time to time. If that's not 1/8, I'm going to be really embarrassed. This one's about 3.55. That's why I couldn't figure it out. All right. We've got 0.93. So we may actually not even bother with that one because we'll basically just connect the dots. All right, we're gonna ditch this for a second. Now, this stuff was cheap, not great. The ends are all a little rough and a little plied together. So we're going to end up having to set ourselves up slightly off in one way or another. So I've got a relatively flat spot here that we're going to try to use for the longest part of this. So again, I'm going to make sure I have it oriented right. Now this does have a plastic backing on it, so I'm not worried about drawing on it and having to try to erase it. Try to get as close as we can though, not to waste. Okay, we got the angle right. So now I know that is going to be 3.55 inches. Remember, when you're doing these very precise things, if you have a ruler, you need to look out for where the 0 mark is. If you have a rule, you can butt right up to the end. Something I have learned on a different project I am currently working on. All right. Doesn't matter what you have if you can't hold it steady. All right. Well, that's about as clear as mud. But like I said, we're going to sand this back, so it'll be all right. So next we're going to measure out 3.6. So that's going to be slightly shy of 5/8. Get the line here. Now I just realized that that line is potentially not perfectly square. Oh no, it is 90 degrees. Or at least close enough. One and 1/8. Okay. Now we need 0.93, so we will figure that by a little over 7/8. Oh, this is actually divided up nicely. So a 16th would be 0.0625. So we're gonna do 15/16. Easy enough. Okay, everything's coming together. Now, to get the other angle, knowing that those are 90 degrees, we're just going to straighten them out. Now, I know this is going to run parallel, so we'll try to level up our okay. We're going to double check that. And it looks to be about good. but I also know we're going to have to round it. And we're going to be cautious. So that should be the hard part. We're going to start hacking away at it. Don't let anyone tell you this is easy. There we go. It may be wise to point out at this point, this is my first time using this sort of saw. So we have two options at this point. I can either try to turn the coping saw, or I can just cut in a circle and then come back through and clean it up. We are going to take the easier route. Tip, it seems like it helps to angle the coping saw in a little bit to get your line started. And remember, speed, not force. So moving quicker will get you through quicker. Pushing whatsoever will get you nowhere. All right, we're getting closer. We're also getting covered in plastic shavings that don't smell particularly great. All right, remember, saws are sharp. Try not to put your fingers in the way of them. All right, so we've got our rough draft here, which makes me assume that we are safe to pull this off. Now, this is going to require a little bit of sanding, test fitting, probably sanding again, test fitting, and on for who knows. But that's the basic of it. We've got our outline here, and we'll get it cleaned up. All right, ready or not, we're calling it finished with the finish. So we're gonna go ahead and remove our last little bit of tape here. I went through and did one more coat on the neck that I may end up sanding back just a little bit, and I think 5 very light coats of the satin lacquer on the body. Stuff's still sticky. Okay, that's all of it. All right, So we're going to start with some of the easy things first. We'll knock out the ferrules for our bridge and start getting the pickups in a good spot before I start dealing with where the bridge is going to sit. Oh, we can go ahead and pull this out too, hopefully. Some sort of plier would probably make this easier, but so far so good. Okay, good. It looks like it popped out. Ooh. So, got it all out. It definitely prevented us from getting paint into the cavity, which I'm happy about. So we'll start eyeing up our pickup rings. Now there's a couple ways we could proceed. We could try to just go ahead and drill, but I think I'm actually going to be able to use an awl and mark out where these are supposed to go. We're going to go ahead and get a pickup for this just to be safe. So I'm actually going to mount this. So I'm not going for perfect here. Just trying to get these screwed in. If you've never done this before, I have no advice. Okay. We've got both of them screwed in slightly. Always have some screwdrivers handy. So we're just giving ourselves a little mark in here, make things easier for the bit to grab onto. The finish is still probably a little slick. Now again, I've learned to save you guys some pain. I already figured out what bit I need. All right. Got a little bit of play. We just want to make sure it's in the right spot. We'll come back through with a better bit and get those in a little bit. All right, that's one pickup basically installed. Let's go for two. All right, so I can't find the other set of mounting hardware for the bridge pickup, so we're just gonna kind of trudge forward. I'll try to track some down. We'll get it on there. All right, so we've got it ran through. We're going to try to lift this up just to make sure we end up where we need to be. We'll come back through and tighten those up once I grab a better screwdriver. So now we've got the easy part, hopefully. We're just going to drive the ferrules in. The really easy part. Okay. All right, so I took a quick break. Was able to track down some mounting hardware for the pickups. We're gonna end up having to swap both of them because the screws are different colors. I also picked up a candle to make getting these in a little easier. So we're gonna try to get that one in before we work on the other ones, just to give us something stable to work with. Trying to get a light coating on here. It's harder than it looks. Oh no. Oh boy. Okay. I've gotten myself into a bit of trouble here. Wonder if these are magnetic. Oh, yes, they are. If you don't own magnetic screwdrivers, round two, I would highly recommend it. Makes little things like that just a little bit easier. Could also make it easier just starting what you're doing. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's night and day. All right. So we're gonna double check this, make sure I'm happy with where it's sitting, the angle of it. All right, we're gonna go ahead and press forward. So, since I've been gone a little while, I'm gonna double check our depth again. Something very odd just happened. And I'm hoping. So it felt like I went through, but luckily, this is where it would be. I just made it through the top. So we're gonna have to be a little bit more careful, I think, on these ones, just to make sure we don't press in too far. Okay, I'm gonna stand up. It gets a little bit more difficult to line this bit up exactly where I want, because after the first couple, it gets pretty hot. So I'll probably end up fast forwarding through this bit. I'm just gonna put these last couple in there. so I can see what it looks like. We will have to take this back off to get our ground wire in, but I would like to get everything in there relatively comfortably. So we've gotten the bridge screwed in. The good news, bad news about this particular bridge, as you can see, I've had some trouble getting the ferrules in for the bridge. If you look very closely, you can see I've actually partially bent and shattered one of them. For the time being, I'm going to leave that as is and figure out what to do. The good thing about that is I've been able to get a good seal around the bottom of this because this plate bends pretty easily. Hopefully it doesn't bend too much when it's in use, but for the time being, I think it's gonna work. All right, so I'll spare you guys going through and remounting these pickups. All right, so I'd like to get the last little bit of a mess out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and put in our strap buttons and install our tuning pegs. We're gonna wait on the electronics jack just for the fact that I'd like to have it all assembled so I don't make things too tight or any other foreseeable problem. So we'll go ahead and start with the strap buttons. I think this will be an easier one since we still have the bridge on especially. This isn't working out very well at all. So the difficult thing here is making sure that I get the right viewpoint. Okay. All right, I think that'll do. This one will be a little bit easier. Obviously, we're just relying on the instrument. It's a lot more narrow of a spot. That wasn't too bad so far. I did already get our drill bit ready. Okay. Now, so that we don't make the same mistake twice, we're gonna go ahead and check it. Leave those out. I realized I don't have the felt pads that you would normally put in there. With this being such a delicate finish, I would like to have them. All right, so I flipped our working angle a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and get our tuning keys on. There we go. I was a little worried. I knew I test fit these, so it would just be finished we had to fix, but I've done enough of that at this point. And we'll probably have to do a little bit more before this is finished. So I'm just grabbing these at random. They spilled out a little bit. All right, so like I said, we're gonna completely assemble these before we put the screws in, just to make it a little bit easier, I hope. All right, so before I tighten these down the rest of the way, we're gonna get them where we want them, which I'm thinking will be easier from this angle. Actually, very happy with how that looks. So for those of you wondering why these are going in so easy without adding wax, it's not because I've gotten better. It's because this is a lot softer than that hard maple top. All right, so I'll come back and clean these up. We're gonna go ahead and clean up this area a little bit and wire everything up. Oh, forgot one thing before we go. So I noticed as I was doing this that the screw that's used to tension the spring for this bridge was poking up quite a bit. So we're gonna go ahead and make things a little bit more square by taking some material out for it to go down into. All right, so before I did this, I put the screw back in and rotated it around a little bit to give myself a mark to go off of. Now, we could use any bit for this. I'm going to use these that I wish I had had a long time ago. So there we go. I'm going to clean up this area a little bit and we'll be back to do our electronics. Alright, so I've done a little prep work to get us ready to start wiring everything up. Made a little table so I don't burn my desk. Cut up some wires, and I think we have everything ready to go. So what's going to end up happening, this is our, sorry, get that into frame a little bit better. So this is the wire coming off of our neck pickup. This is from the bridge. So this is going to be our one that's coil split. Our pickup selector will end up getting the hot from the neck on one side, the hot from the top pickup of the bridge. These two will basically be our other pickup from that, which will be wired onto our volume selector. So what will happen is when this is down, it will feed through this and give us that lower half of the pickup. When we pull it up, this will end up going nowhere. I went ahead and labeled a little bit to make this easy, so I know that you can kind of see some Sharpie on here. So this will end up being the neck position, down will be the bridge, and then I've labeled down here, this short side is the neck, so as you can see it's selected, and the longer one will end up being the bridge, so that would be just the bridge. I've also wrote on these so I don't get confused, volume and tone. Our pickup selector will feed into our volume pot. From there, it will go off to the tone pot as well as our output jack. The tone pot, if you guys remember from all the way back, is actually going to have two separate capacitors. So we've got an O2 and a 0.1. This should be the normal, so this will end up being our down position. So in the down position, it will run through this and it will have a relatively regular capacitance. And then if we pull up, it will run through the much larger one. I have no idea what this is going to be like. It just seemed like a fun experiment. We're going to end up wiring as much as we can up here, get everything put in, and then work on the actual pickup wiring, just to make things easy on ourselves. I think that will make things easy on ourselves. So we're going to go ahead and start by tinning everything up. Hopefully our soldering iron is hot. So we've got everything tinned up. We're going to go ahead and start with the easiest bit, which will be our tone knob. We're going to get the capacitors onto it, and then we'll hopefully start wiring things up. All right, so our camera overheated. I finally got that one last bit attached. So now we're going to start preparing our grounds and get ready to start attaching the pickups. As you can see, I've already put our ground wire through just to make life a little easier. I thought this would make it easier. All right, so we've had our first issue. This will only fit in one direction. And the way I have it set up is flipped. Now this is an easy fix compared to a lot of the ones we've had to do. We're just gonna take this solder off, make sure this thing's still on. Now it should go. Ooh, we've lost a ground. Oh no, we never connected a ground. So I'm realizing we've either lost a wire or forgotten one last wire. Alright, so after a handful of camera issues, all we've got left to do is a couple of grounds, hook up our neck pickup, and wire in the jack. Alright, so we're basically done with the wiring. We've got one last thing to check before I actually attach the jack to the body, and that's to make sure that we were correct and everything. So I've got a multimeter. Oh, and we've got a reading, 6.11, which is about right for pickups. So somehow, some way, in the mess of all of this, I've gotten this right. So our last task here will be to attach the jack plate, and we're probably going to wrap it up for this video. Alright, I almost forgot one last thing. We're gonna give up on that. I'm just gonna run the wire under the spring and hope we get a good connection. So that's basically it. We'll do a quick rundown. So I will go through and reinstall the bridge, put our knobs on, and hopefully string it up. I will record stringing it up, just in case something crazy happens, but if it doesn't, I probably won't show that. The last video will just kind of be a playthrough, making sure all the electronics work as planned, and just an overview. Oh, alright guys, so that's it. If anyone has any suggestions for the issue I'm having with our bridge posts, please drop me a comment. I'm not sure if I'm going to try to replace them, try to pound them in. We'll see. I've got a week or so before I start working on really putting the final video together. Hope to see you next time.